What's up everyone here, and I think you make this video party. I'm so excited to upload this one for you guys because for this video we're going to be taking out one of the most interesting anime that I've ever watched, Bane Abyss. For this video I'll be doing a brief review on each installment of the franchise, which includes Season 1, the movie, and Season 2, so let's get started. Now for those of you who already know about this anime, you're probably thinking, oh boy, here we go. Okay, after seeing all the memes going into this show, I had no idea on why this anime gets such a interesting rep. Because from the get-go, this series opens up with a brief explanation on the world that we are diving into, where we have this giant chasm that basically leads to the center of the earth that is known as the Abyss. And right off the bat, we're already introduced to our main characters, Rico, who is an explorer of the Abyss, and Reg, who is a robot boy who came from the Abyss but has no memory of his life. Now, one of the things that I found very interesting about this series was the ranking of explorers in this world, where you have white whistles who are the best of the best of the best, and you have red whistles like Rico who are pretty much ranked above rookie level. And this plays in perfectly to what comes next, because later on Rico gets a letter that came from the Abyss, and as it turns out, it's from her mom. As it turns out, her mom was a white whistle and writes to her daughter that she's waiting at the bottom of the Abyss. And to make things even more interesting, Reg is tied to all of this. Okay, let's go down the Abyss and see our mom. Whoa, before we do anything, there's something you should know about the Abyss, because not only are there monsters down there, but the further you go down, the more cursed you become. For example, let's just say you start at the top of a 50-story building and you go down to floor 30. If you encounter a ladder on floor 30 that makes you go up just a little bit, you're going to experience pain on a whole nother level. For reasons I cannot remember, the overall nature of the Abyss is that the only way to keep your humanity and sanity is to keep going down and stay down. Because if you ascend upward at any point, you're going to become less human in the most grotesque way. Going back to the building example, if you started on floor 50 and went down to floor 40, you'd be fine going up and down those floors. It's the further you go down where you reach the point of no return, and this threat looms over the entire series, which is actually worse than being eaten alive. But despite the dangers, Rico decides to go full steam ahead on this quest, given how she's grown up as an orphan for most of her life. And if there's a slight chance for her to see her mom, she's gonna take it. And she also decides to bring Reg along with her, seeing as that he's basically baby Iron Man. And the majority of this season is pretty well paced, as you get to explore the incredible scenery that exists within the world of the Abyss. However, it's not until episode 10 where this anime reveals its true nature, as some very bad things happen. Now, just to be clear, there are two things in this world that'll make me pass out. One of them is surgical gore, and by the time I reached the end of episode 10, I had to lie down. Now, I am no stranger to gore. I mean, I have seen plenty of R-rated movies and have watched shows like Goblin Slayer and Demon Slayer and actually liked them both. But when I see a character, whether it being an anime or a movie, start to perform self-surgery, yeah, that's gonna make me pass out. Not gonna lie, I'm actually feeling a little woozy right now just thinking about that moment. So to sum it all up, here's my overall reaction to episode 10. Yep, that was pretty much me by the end of episode 10. And as if that wasn't dark enough, we meet a new character, Nanachi, who later on joins the group. And while she may look adorable because, let's be honest, she's basically a little bunny, this rabbit has the most tragic backstory I've ever seen, which is crazy because her little story arc that happens at the end of season 1 actually sets you up for the movie, so let's talk about the movie. Now, one of the things I liked about the movie more than the first season is how we actually have an overall villain for the story, whereas in the first season, we really didn't have any antagonists to threaten our characters. Here we do, and honestly, the villain in this movie is one of the most sadistic anime villains I have ever seen. But before we go any further, the story is mainly set at the drop-off point of the Abyss, where we now have to take a vehicle if we want to keep going down. And that's one of the things that I found very interesting about this series, is that the further we go down, the more levels we see, and with every level we pass through, you can see how every level has its own personality, because while some areas are lush jungles and floating mountains, others are harsh ice tundras, which fit perfectly for our main villain, Bondrewd. What makes Bondrewd such an interesting character is that at the end of the day, he's a scientist, and scientists love pursuing knowledge of the unknown. In Bondrewd's case, he's obsessed with learning about the curses of the abyss and wants to see if those curses can be used for the good of humanity, which is pretty typical for evil scientists. However, what makes Bondrewd so sadistic is that his test subjects are actually children, one of whom was Nanachi. So while the majority of the movie is basically learning about Bondrewd's experiments, this movie has something that was missing in the first season: a fight. Not gonna give away too much, but Reg versus Bondrewd was pretty much the highlight of this movie. So while the story is pretty much straightforward, Bondrewd steals the entire movie. With that being said, going into season 2, which was released late last year, if I had to describe that season with one word, it would be that it was very interesting. Because while we watch our three main characters go further down the abyss, the season also decides to show us an origin story on several settlers who discovered the abyss. And this plays parallel to our story with Rico, Reg, and Nanachi, who enter an organic city that is straight up out of Dr. Seuss's stomach. Honestly, I have no idea on what the hell I was watching this season, because while the majority of the story takes place in this weird city, there are also times where we get to learn more about Reg's past, who apparently had some sort of relationship with a character called Fopta, who is adorable, curious, and scary at the same time, because there are moments where she is playful to Reg, there are moments where she is strange to him, and then there are moments where she is a straight up cat out of hell. Now, while we do get to learn more about Reg and Fopta, the season also decides to go back and forth between the past and the present, where we get to learn about the origin story of this city, which is something that I like in a lot of stories whenever we encounter strange civilizations and learn about how they came to be. And we see that in this season as we get to see these group of adventurers encounter the abyss hundreds of years before the events of season 1 and go through the same journey that our three main characters have taken. So even though I was a bit lost in the main story that involved Rico, Reg, and Nanachi, I couldn't get enough of that prequel story. Now, one of the goals that every sequel strives for is to surpass what came before. In this case, season 2 has to try to be better than the movie, which is kind of a hard act to follow. And while the pacing is on par with the film, the action is where this installment of the franchise stands out. Holy crap, at the near end of this season, Fopta is let loose, and to say that she was a fox in a chicken coop would be an understatement, because this was basically a slaughter. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this season took a page out of Mortal Kombat, because the amount of blood, guts, and limbs that go flying across the screen is on a whole nother level, making this the bloodiest installment in the franchise so far. Now, looking at all three installments of this series, you can see how they each follow a similar pattern where our characters dive down the abyss, they explore different areas within the abyss before something very bad happens to them, and then the action ramps up later on at the end of the story before a calm resolution happens, and then we move further on with our journey with the next installment. And with season 3 announced, I am very curious to see where the story is going to take us next. Okay, so we reached the end of the video, and this is the part what I would say. So if you're looking for something to watch right now, I highly recommend you watch this series. This show would be the exception, given how, while it is cute in some moments, it is not afraid to go dark in the blink of an eye. So, yeah, that was my review on Made in the Abyss. I'm gonna go lie down right now because it took a lot out of me to not pass out. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. If you like what you saw, hit the subscribe button so you always updates from this channel. I'll see you next time with a brand new video. Bye-bye.